Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Quest for Wisdom podcast, where we search for nuggets of wisdom from the lives of some truly amazing people. Today's guest is Florian Casajuana. He's a London-born comedian and performer who has studied theatre since the age of 8 and loves being the centre of attention. He has followed the Hare Krishna cult, as he jokingly puts it, for 5 years and has recently been initiated as a full-fledged member. He is a fun, intelligent, and fanatic preacher who prays sincerely, sins extravagantly, and expresses trauma transparently on stage. He is addicted to milk and looks down on those who disrespect cows. Today, we discuss Hare Krishna, consciousness, God and the Demigods, celibacy, no sex before marriage, the path to enlightenment, comedy, and much more. You can find Florian's work on Instagram at FlowFlowComic. FLO comic. Florian is a unique human being with a quirky energy, and I hope you find our conversation enlightening. Right, I think we're live now.
Yeah,
Welcome, Florian Casajuanas. Is that right?
That's
right.
I think the S at the end maybe not, but like
Casajuana.
Casajuana. Yeah, that's good.
So first things first, Florian, you are a comedian,
Yeah, man.
a human,
Yeah, also.
and a recent Hare Krishna initiate. Is that the word?
Initiated.
Yeah, like what's the official name of a person who's just been
Initiated.
initiated? Yeah.
Just initiated. Yeah, you've been initiated. Yeah, I don't think it's like an official name. You do get a spiritual name, which is pretty nice.
What's your spiritual name?
Spiritual name is Balaram Das Babaji Das Babaji Das Maharaj Babaji Tikka Masala.
Is any of that accurate?
Yeah, Balaram Das.
Balaram Das.
Yeah, it means. Do you know what it means?
No.
No, it means the giver of pleasure.
Ah, very nice.
Yeah.
I do know that there is a person called Ram Das.
Not that kind of dirty pleasure. I know you were thinking of.
No.
Not that kind of like spiritual pleasure. That's
I was thinking like the pleasure of when you sat there stuffing your face full of cake.
Okay,
I was thinking of that kind of pleasure.
Okay.
You know, like have your cake and eat it.
Okay.
But yeah, first things first, before we delve into why you're called Babaram Ramdas Tikka Masala, Florian Casajuana, British accent, London accent, strange name.
Yeah, man.
Where does that come from?
So my mom is French. My grandparents are Catalan and Spanish. And during the Civil War in Spain, they went over to France. And my mom was born in France. And she went over to London. She met my father, and she stayed there to learn English. And then I was born in London. I was born in London, Hackney, East London, bro. You know what I mean? Yes, bro.
When I first saw you described someone described you as the philosophical Oliver Twist.
Oh yeah.
That was the first time I saw you on stage.
Okay. Yeah, I think I remember that. Yeah, because I used to go up on stage and start saying like, "I'm a philosopher." And people used to laugh at that. They haven't seen this face. They haven't seen this look. They're going to go, "You philosopher, fuck the fuck up. What the fuck? You're like a party animal."
No, because you go on, you're like, "Yes, bro. So basically, like, I'm from London, innit? But like, I'm not stupid. I'm a philosopher." And everyone's like, "What?
Yeah,
Why does this guy sound like Oliver Twist?"
Yeah, it's incongruent. It's like, what the fuck's going on?
How did you get on to becoming a Hare Krishna initiate? Let's start from the beginning. Early years, teenage years. What were you like? What was family life like? How did you end up being an East Hackney guy in Barcelona?
East London, bro.
East London, bro. Yeah. Being a Hare Krishna. How's that happened?
How did it happen? I was an atheist my whole life, actually. So I was an atheist, and I was like, I was just an atheist. I liked debating religion, but I was never like believing in a god or a single god or anything like that. So I was just like, let's forget about this. But let's debate it. And I remember even at one point I stopped being an atheist at one point because it just felt like there was no conclusive argument to kind of like saying there was no god 100%. So I was just like, okay, whatever. I'm gonna call myself agnostic? Not agnostic. Agnostic is that I'm not gonna debate about God until we actually probably define God. So I was like, okay, I'll stick to this. And I kind of stuck to that. And I always like to talk about religion and stuff. But then I went through like a tough time in my life where I broke up with the mother of my child. And then she, how do you call it? Yeah, and then I stopped seeing my daughter so much. And I started drinking a lot, smoking a lot. I was kind of spiraling down a little bit and going into depression.
And what age was this at?
This was at 28.
And how old are you now?
So now I'm 35.
Okay.
And so I started spiraling down a little bit, and I was kind of going down. And then I always knew that meditation was like scientifically proven. So I'm very much like scientifically driven. I still am, because there is a science of God, which is pretty interesting. But yeah, so I started spiraling down, and I was like, okay, I need to just start meditating. So I went to like this meditation center, which is the Vipassana Buddhism kind of
That's the
meditation.
silence retreat, isn't it?
As a silence retreat for 10 days. Yeah, so that was
Nice.
amazing. I had a Kundalini awakening there.
Ooh,
yeah,
exciting.
yeah, right. Actually, I apparently heard recently that we can't actually get Kundalini awakenings. Apparently, this is not at this age of having Kundalini awakenings. This is what my friend said. Right, he said that at this age in time, we can't actually get the proper Kundalini awakening. It's actually not possible, because we're not like as intelligent or as we were before.
Collective
Like
consciousness is not strong enough.
It's not strong enough,
in this
exactly.
certain age.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I can believe that.
Yeah, yeah. So he said that. But what I did, I felt some type of energy going through my body. And it was like I was meditating for hours. And then, anyway, I remember at the end of the retreat, just kind of going like, this was, like, I feel good now. You know, I really, truly feel good. You know? And obviously it would go away if I didn't meditate. So I just got addicted to meditation. I just switched my drugs to meditation. I was like a huge. I was a bit of a stoner. I like my weed. Still like my weed. I've been smoking for the past month now. I'm back on track. You know, the opposite. Fall off the track. No, I'm joking. But how do you call it? So yeah, and then after then I started meditating, and through there I started meditating in temples. Then I started listening to the philosophy, and through that I started to get realizations through experience, just meditating in temples, understanding God, well, who was God and stuff like this. And after I was like, okay, when the experience hit me, kind of like a realization, just kind of going like, there's something more, there's something special about understanding God. And then that made me kind of just go like, okay, let me like delve into this a little bit, because I feel good. I feel really good, like triple good, like quadruple good, in when I started like different type of meditation, but also like praying to God and trying to have a bit of faith in my life, and that really changed a lot in my life.
Yeah, so there's a few things I wanna. That's awesome. There's a few things I want to pick apart there.
Yeah, man.
First thing is Kundalini. So
Yeah.
Kundalini has, as far as I understand, has a few different names. Kundalini would be coming from the Vedic tradition. Am I correct?
So the Vedic Kundalini, it could be. Thing is that we don't really like study too much like the yoga systems. We study
Okay.
a type of yoga, because yoga technically means to connect with the divine. Right? So technically all yogas are there to connect you with the divine.
Unity, I think it means.
Yeah, exactly. So then how do you like, in which process, in which role, like, you know, how do you get there? There's different types of yogas to get you there. Now, if what's it called? If Kundalini is accepted in the Vedas, I'm not 100% sure. I don't know if actually Kundalini is accepted, or I think it might be, because I think there's Vyasa, then there's, how do you call it, Sanjaya Yoga, and then there's Karma Yoga, which is more the karmic reactions, understanding what karma is, and then there's the Bhakti Yoga, which is what we study.
Because I'm more focusing specifically on Kundalini itself. So Kundalini, as I understand it, is energy that's within inside us that can be called upon through yogic practices, through meditation, to basically give us in some cases supernatural experiences. Your typical putting into dream states, speaking with gods, all these different types of things. But from my understanding, and the science behind it, is that Kundalini can also be thought of as spinal fluid, which is collected at the base of your spine, and meditative practices practice the like squeezing of the pelvic floor and focusing on the base of the spine, and then trying to shoot this cerebral fluid into your brain, which can then cause you these crazy experiences. But some people have this energy or whatever it is activated through various different methods. Some people just have to work at it really hard, yoga or meditation, but some people it just happen one day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the crazy thing, because I'm like, is this a little ticking time bomb waiting to just explode inside of us and flood us with more energy?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it something that anyone can access, or can certain people access this newfound energy within this lifetime, if you believe in the theories of many lifetimes and reincarnation? So, I mean, could you explain when you said you had a Kundalini awakening?
I don't know.
But
I don't know. I didn't have an awakening or Kundalini
but
like,
like
but I felt
your
an
Kundalini
energy inside of
experience.
me. Yeah, yeah.
Could you explain what that was like for you?
That was. It was just like a. How do you call it? It was like just an undulation of energy coming through my spine and going up, and then just pain kind of flowing through. I started to cry. Um, and obviously you feel quite like light afterwards. Um, like you've gotten rid of something, you know. But that feeling, you could get it in actually a lot of practices, not just Kundalini. So, for example, I did Kundalini activation therapy, where you just lie down, and then a woman comes around, they put music on, and she touches a few parts of your body, and your Kundalini is awakened, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And that was actually, it was pretty intense because I remember just lying there, just my consciousness being out of my body. You know, there was no drugs, no nothing. There was no like smoking, anything, or anything to do with DMT taking or anything like that. But I literally felt my consciousness leave. Like I felt the whole time my consciousness was out of my body. And then I remember going just lying there for like maybe an hour and a half, not moving a single inch. And then I was like, okay, this has not really worked. You know, I was like, this is not really happening. This is not really exactly what I thought it was supposed to be. And then suddenly she put me, she kind of like did something to put me back inside my body. And as soon as that happens, I remember feeling this like pain again, you know, like uncomfortability. I was like, ooh, because obviously the body is not like, you know, super comfortable place to be in.
Mm.
You know what I mean? It's like full of like aches and pains and it gets old and weak and stuff like this. So I remember just that. And I just remember kind of going, it took me like a bit of time just to get out of, you know, just kind of get back to reality in a sense. And also there's like Kundalini, there's that, for example, which also like that afterwards, I felt like really like lighter, alleviated, you know, from certain pains and sufferings. and and recently I did like how do you call it, Korean meditation, which is pretty badass. Where a friend of mine came from Switzerland, and she does this Korean meditation where they take like these images in your head, and they say, okay, so what you do, they take these images and they go, okay, we've got these images, right, and just you could. So they gave me they gave me a seminar. Oh, a seminar.
So, sorry, just to stop you.
Yeah,
When
man.
you're saying taking images,
Yeah.
they are giving you images to put in your head,
No, no,
or
no.
they're trying to extract images
No, no,
from you.
no, 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 no. So what it is how do you call it? So in the seminar, what they said, I was a bit disappointed when I walked in there because like they were like proper Korean girls. Like they've been here for like maybe 2, 3 months. They opened up a center. They've never been out in Barcelona. They've just known Korea. Like they were like proper Korean, man. They didn't give me any like Korean tea when I walked in. They gave me some manzanilla, which was a bit like, whatever. Anyway, that was the only thing that disappointed me. And so we sat down and gave me the seminar. And they said, okay, so take these images from your childhoods, you know, like images, and bring them up to when you're about, let's say, you know, 15, 20, 30, or to now, to the present moment. That's what they said. So from your childhood to your present moment, care about these images. For me, it felt like more like reels, you know, reels from like Instagram and shit, than actually like just photos. They were saying photos and stuff. So I was like, okay, cool.
So I'm still a bit confused. So
Hmm.
they were saying like, how do they know the images from your childhood, or they're
No,
just
no, no, no.
so they're just telling you,
Yeah, they're telling me the method.
right?
So they gave me a method. All right, so it's the method is meditation method, in a sense, invented by some Korean guy, taken from I think like Buddhism, some close way around there, adapted to this modern age. So it would take these images and say you kind of go through the images, and we did that. So we took like 10 minutes, and we're like, okay, we sat down. I think 15 minutes. It was. It was the night before I went out. I was absolutely knackered. I was like, fuck, like 15 minutes of sitting down here fucking trying to meditate. It's gonna be fucking impossible. I was like, just please don't fucking fall asleep. Just just fucking fall asleep. I was trying hard. I was falling asleep. And I was praying also just like fucking don't fucking snore. Like and then, you know, just be like Anyway, whatever. Like, so so yeah, so we sat down there, and after about like a couple of minutes, like after maybe about 5 minutes, I did like my mind started to go into this dream state, like the half conscious dream state, like you're in a kind of dream and you're kind of going and you can't really control it too much, but you're like, okay, I'm there, I'm just gonna stay there. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I kind of stayed there for a while. And I took the excuse as like, the mind wanders. So I was like, excuse if I really fell asleep, something like I don't remember anything, or tried the method. But then yeah, so what I did is I did like that whole like thing from like, more like from my age of 5, maybe something like this, from the earliest memories I try to go through. I try to go up to the way now. I think I got up to 15 years old, some shit like this.
So
No, I'm
they're basically telling you to kind of uh, think of prominent memories when you're 5, think of prominent memory
Exactly.
when you're 6, think of prominent memory when you're 7.
Exactly.
Right, okay.
Exactly.
And as a person, how visual are you when you're like, how mentally visual are you? Can you bring up very strong visual imagery?
Yeah. I mean, I think we could. I think everybody could do that. And I think I don't know, like images or like imagination, bring the imagination up. I don't know how. Maybe different people have different ways of, like maybe seeing it in their minds.
See, for me, if I try and bring up, I only found out like 2 years ago that people can visualize things in their head. Since then, I've been practicing it, but I don't naturally picture things in my head.
Okay.
I have to actually actively try and do it. And when I do,
Okay.
when I first started, it was like watching, it was like trying to bring up a picture with almost no detail
Yeah.
in really, really dark grayscale black and white that's where you basically can't see anything. Now I can bring up better pictures, but for me, memories will be like one sort of concept as opposed to like a big image.
Okay.
Like I can't really bring up video imagery. I'm practicing it. I think I probably will be able to in like in a while, but some people are hyper visual and some people can't visualize at all. For me, it's like words, conversations, and sentences. That's how I think in
That's
words.
good.
And
Yeah,
some people think in pictures. Some people think in both.
Yeah.
But there's a
That's
big difference.
interesting,
But I always, since I found out now, I always question people like, how visual are you? Because I'm trying to like formulate my own like theories about why some people are more visual and why they're not.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Mega interesting. Anyway, sorry, carry on.
Well, yeah, because I think there's like, how do you call it? There's like visual memory, auditive memory, there's like touch memory, also smell memory. There's like a whole bunch of those. Interesting. So then and after that, she kind of said to me, she goes, what? Okay, and then so now what we do with these images is so we finish the meditation. I was like, okay, cool. And then after what we do with the images, we then take these images and we kind of put them into the fire. And I was like, okay. She was like, so for example, if you take a piece of paper and you throw it into the fire, it's like letting go. That's what countries explain, like letting go. I remember she kind of like, she goes, you could let go maybe of a piece of paper. Yeah, if you put that into the fire, it's easy to burn. So yeah, it's not sure. She goes, what about a newspaper? I was like, well, it's a bit harder to burn a newspaper. She goes, what about a shoe? And I was like, okay, shoe, maybe like shoe. It's going to be harder to burn that. She goes, what about your phone? And I was like, the phone. And I was like, oh, very hard. And I kind of remember thinking that because she's Korean, so she must be loving her phone. Like, so. So she must be like totally like, just like, oh no, the phone, oh no. And also, I don't have a phone.
The phone probably would burn quite well, though.
Yeah, right.
Batteries probably burn pretty well.
This is my phone. Can you see actually? That's my phone. So for me, it's pretty easy just to get rid of my phone. I can just get rid of that easy lemon squeezy. So anyway, so I was a bit sarcastic when I love oven, but I was like, it's kind of funny. And anyway, so they kind of talked about that, and after they kind of said, okay, this is the seminar finished, and I was like, whoa, can I at least try to like throw something into the fire, And she's like, oh no, end of seminar. And I'm like, okay, well, like, give me like a minute or like 2 minutes just to try it out, you know what I mean, just to finish the process or the cycle, or And she's like, okay, fine. So we kind of turn off the lights again, and she kind of like you do a little breathing, just a couple of breaths, and then you get into the meditation. And he says, so I remember thinking to myself, okay. And the first thing I took out was like some emotional thing when my mom burned my hand as a kid, and a bit traumatic, So I was gonna put that into the fire, and soon as my action was to go put that into the fire, I remember just kind of having a little chuckle to myself. I was like, and then I was putting it into, and then suddenly I went, no. I'm going to put that into the fire. You know, I had resistance suddenly just to putting that into the fire. So I remember kind of going, like, that's weird. All right. So I then thought, okay, let me try, and I tried some other little things, and I found resistance in putting these things into the fire because they talk about letting go. You are not these images in your head, you know, or you're not these thoughts, maybe, or you're not these sounds or these conversations or whatever, how you wanna think about it. So yeah, so I took something more light. I took like a little stupid memory that I had, and I threw that into the fire. And also then I felt like um, a nice feeling of letting go. It was a nice energy that I was kind of going through. So I think like alleviating suffering is something that can happen in a lot of different techniques and stuff like this. And through Buddhism, for example, alleviating suffering is through suffering.
Yeah.
You alleviate suffering through the suffering. You sit down for long hours, and then you just kind of like go through those habitual like negativity things. Those habits come up, and then through that they come through your body and they just leave. And then that's how you just kind of get rid of those. So that's cool, like, but we're on a different line than that. We go straight to we try to connect with God. So what happens is there's a material energy and there's a spiritual energy. All right, there's two different energies. So the material energy is everything that's kind of material. So even like mystical powers, even energy forms of like with water, fire, all of those. Our bodies are made of this. But what we try to do is actually try to connect to the spiritual energy and trying to get to that, which is because God is 100% spiritual. So he's nothing material. He's not contaminated by anything material. He's like 100%. So when you connect with God, you get, that full potency of God. All right, not in this. You're not becoming God, which is sometimes different than some other philosophies. But what you're doing is just that you're like a part and parcel of. So you're like a tiny, minute part. So you have the same qualities, but in tiny form.
Okay, and what is your understanding and definition of God?
So gods would be, yeah, the all attractive personality. So personality. So for us, God has got a personality. He's got a name. It's like yeah, it's like a person. You know. So yeah, an all attractive person. We could say it.
So you think of God as not necessarily physical, but a, an entity. You think of it as an actual entity as opposed to a state, or
Also. So what happens is God has got many forms and different, like, it's got thousands and millions of forms. It's got different ways of expressing itself or himself. Um,
herself.
well, it's actually, Krishna is a him, so we believe it's a him. He's got Radharani, which is his consort, which is just his immediate expansion, which is Radharani, which is who he loves the most, and he does everything for her.
So,
So
do you think that Krishna and Radharani and whatever her name and all the other gods, or there are gods, like it's like polytheistic, isn't it? So
so
the
different, yeah, different demigods,
demigods, sorry.
demigods. Yeah.
So, do you think that the demigods and Krishna are created for us to be able to actually conceptualize them as real people or like actual physical things? Do you think they're created for that purpose to help us understand? Or do you think that they are still just spirit entities with their own things and they don't have a physical form or didn't have a physical form?
Mm. So the first thing is whoever like an interesting question would be like whoever, let's say, created that that would be God.
Right.
So technically, God is the creator. So
Mm-hmm.
in a sense, like, and obviously, so we believe that Krishna is a creator. So he created um those forms for different purposes. One of the main purposes is for his own enjoyment.
But they were physical forms.
So you
That's
can
believed to be physical forms.
it depends on who and what. It depends on who's got the physical form. Sometimes people have physical forms, like material physical forms, like grossly physical. Some of them more spiritual, so some of them is more subtle. So it's like you have different forms now. You have like a form of water, so you can have ice, water, liquids, vapor. So all those are different forms of types of different elements. And it kind of comes the same thing with um with spirituality, because it's like you have your minds, which is an energy within itself, but it's very subtle. You can't see it per se. You know what I mean? As the physical body, you can see it very easily.
But Hare Krishna is is that a branch of Hinduism? So do because Krishna is part of is one of the is the Hindu god. Am I correct in that? And
Krishna
then
is part of the Hindu gods, yeah.
yeah, and then you have like Ganesh, the one with the
That's
elephant,
right,
and then
yeah.
you have like Vishnu and
That's
some of
right.
the other ones. So you believe in the same gods, or you
Yeah.
use the same gods as the Hindus.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
And so
yeah.
then, how did Hare Krishna like? What is the distinction between Hinduism and Hare Krishna?
So it's yeah, I mean this goes into like the history of like Hinduism and stuff like this and the history of the lineage um of the Hare Krishnas, which is actually what we're called to specific is Vaishnavism. So Vaishnava is somebody who serves God
Okay.
directly, a servant of God. So that's why we're called devotees because we devote ourselves to God as much as we can, like you know what I mean, and our possibilities and our willingness to serve. So yeah, we try to do that. But then when it comes down to Hinduism, Hinduism is not is like a lot of people. What happens in Hinduism is that some of them they also think as other gods as gods, or sometimes on equal level as gods. So, for example, they might think of Shiva on equal level as God, or Ganesh on equal level as Krishna. But we take Krishna as a supreme, and everybody else is his servants. So even the
Okay.
demigods are his servants. I think that's where we kind of maybe differentiate a little bit from Hinduism, whereas they're all gods and they're probably on the same level. But where we definitely differentiate is one supreme personality, Krishna, um, of Godhead. Yeah.
So I wonder, would that then classify it as monotheistic?
I don't know.
I don't know. I
I'm
don't
not a
know.
religious. I'm not a religious religion philosopher. Religion philosopher. I've got no idea about this.
So one supreme god who has demigods that serve him.
Yeah, serve him. Yeah, and serve humanity also. Actually, mostly the demigods are serving humanity.
So I suppose it's not that dissimilar from, for example, Catholicism, which
Mhm.
has saints.
Yeah,
You know, you
exactly.
have the saint of this, the saint of that,
Exactly. Yeah.
and these people are human, but sometimes said to have um, done miracles, but they're
Yeah.
not necessarily said to have any. I don't know. I don't think they have any inherent like superpowers or anything,
Mystical
but
powers. Yeah.
mystical powers. But they've all done something that's slightly miraculous or
Yeah.
mystical or
Yeah.
whatever. But
Those are mystical powers in a sense, like you
in a
know, like
sense,
yeah.
or is it just tapping into the power of God, which in theory anybody could tap into?
Yeah. Anybody can.
Um,
It's 100% true.
so, but do the gods, the demigods, do they have like mystical powers? And
To the demigods, yeah, they have mystical powers. Even people who are not demigods can also have mystical powers. You know? What happens is that the platform of this, like the heavenly planets, is where the demigods kind of reside, and they have it's like in the mode of goodness. If you're in the mode of goodness, you go to the heavenly planets, right? And there you have like lots of enjoyment. You can enjoy lots of things. Everything's really nice up there. But it's different than what the spiritual world, because even the heavenly planets are still material, because you can still fall down and you still die. Technically, that's what it is. You're still born and you die. So if you got those like because you're not really free. People sometimes think, oh, I'm looking for freedom, stuff like this, and or have complete freedom. It's good if you have money and you have choices, fantastic. But we don't choose to be born in the body we're born. We don't choose to die when we want to die. So there's not that much choice out there. But when you're in the spiritual world, there is 100% freedom there. There is no death, there is no birth, there is no death. You're just eternal. Your soul is completely eternal in your original form, apparently. So
so that brings me on to reincarnation.
yeah,
Um, I
crazy.
I imagine you believe in reincarnation. What's your
Yeah, man.
understanding of reincarnation?
So reincarnation is just like so it's the idea of how do you call it? So for example, you got this body right now, and when you're a baby, well, let's say when you're 5 years old, do you remember what you look like a little bit? You kind of like yeah, like maybe
Seen pictures myself, yeah.
yeah, you kind of like got a different type of body, and we just kind of we change bodies as we get different ages, different groups, you know, like as we get old and we start getting wrinkles, you know, so things change in our bodies on a constant level. Actually, even our like livers and hearts and lungs change completely. Yeah, I think that's probably better. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So, and even now, how do you call it? Our like our livers, hearts, and everything. All that also changes. Um, with the molecules, I think all the molecules change in your body every 7 years or something like that. So we are in constantly change. So technically, a lot of times we think that when we die, it just finishes and that is it. But why is it? Why with our experience, we have everything that's constantly changing and, transforming itself. And when we die, that just stops. The logic just stops there. And what we actually believe is that actually the logic continues, and you just change to a different body. You can go to an animal body, or you go into like a demigod body.
So does this consciousness, I think about this all the time.
Yeah.
Does this consciousness go to a sort of purgatory, like what's in Christianity is called purgatory?
Yeah.
Does it go there, but like back to the spirit world and then come back down, or does it latch on to something nearby? Because the reason I ask that is because there's some theories that and this is sort of what I think as well. Like there's some theories that consciousness is another form of energy that we don't quite understand yet, or we don't understand at all yet. So in the same way that our brains, neurons fire using electricity, and that's effectively how we operate, the same as a machine, basically. But we understand the electricity, we understand how that works, we understand how our cells turn on and off, we understand that more or less. And, in the same way, you've got magnetism, you've got electromagnetism, all these different forces, energies. Is consciousness just another one of those? And there's theories which say that when you die, your consciousness basically disperses as if it were a gas, and then it latches on to things or people nearby. So a way to conceptualize that pretty easily is that and I was talking about this yesterday with my housemate actually, like if we walked outside right now and there are 10 people on the street and someone got shot and killed, that their consciousness would then ping into the people nearby, and it could cause real strong reactions in our body. Like if you think about it logically, seeing someone die shouldn't be more traumatic than hearing about someone dying, because people die all the time, happens all the time. People are always getting killed, people are dying in horrible ways, and it doesn't have a huge impact on us. But seeing that happen to someone, it can totally mess your life up, even if you don't know the person. And it's like logically it doesn't make a huge amount of sense. But one of the theories is it latches onto you, and then part of their consciousness stays inside of you and just kind of like wreaks havoc for a while until it gets processed. So what are your thoughts on that? Where does consciousness go when one dies?
So what we believe is, how do you call it? Consciousness is an expression of the soul. So we have our senses, the eyes, the ears, and all this. This is the body. It's like you said, like the robot or like the car, like the airplane, whatever it is. These are like what? But the consciousness is within that. So when you die, the consciousness goes, right? But actually, we believe the soul is Satchitananda, which is, how do you call it? Eternal, knowledgeable, blissful, and it has a form also. So that's Vigraha. So Satchitananda Vigraha. So yeah, when you die, what we say, the most simple way of kind of putting it, of understanding it, is kind of like you go where kind of your actions, like karma, in a sense. Well, your actions, whatever actions you have, has a certain type of karmic reaction. Right? If it's good or bad, you get karmic reactions. Right? You can study this. There's books on like how karma works exactly. Which is technically what you're kind of asking now, is exactly how karma works. Like, where do you go? What happens when you do certain actions? What happens when you do certain things? Blah blah. Like, I haven't studied that 100%, so I don't know exactly where you go according to things. But you do know a few things. Like, obviously, if you live a very sinful life, then you're probably going to go down to the hellish planets. If you live a very good life, of generosity and love and care, you're probably more likely to go up to the like higher planets, right? And what we try to do is try to skip even those and actually go straight to serving God. So what we try to do is just serve gods and love gods directly. Because when we do that, we actually water the whole plants. We water the leaf, because it's not going to serve any purpose. If you just water the leaf, it might serve the leaf purpose, but if you water the roots, then after the whole tree actually gets nutrition. So what we try to do is, by serving gods, we actually serve, humanity in itself. So we go back to God. That's what we want to be. That's where we're going to find blissfulness. So in a way, we try to do that, and it depends on what you. I mean, there's a higher chance. I mean, the more you serve God, the more you think of God, the more you're going to go back to God. But then after that, depending on your actions, there is like a purgatory. Like, there's the Yamaharajas, which is the ones who come and judge you. Where you're going to go. Those are the demigods. Because again, the demigods come into place. They're kind of more like administrators of God. You know, they kind of got, you do this, blah blah. So
What would be
um,
called angels, I suppose, in
yeah,
Christianity.
angels, and yeah, exactly, it's kind of the same thing, just different names. Um, so yeah, and there's different places and different situations that can happen to you, according to your karma or to what you've been doing or to how you think of life and stuff like this. So yeah, it really depends on. Um, so this is what actually the interesting part about this is there is actually a science to it.
Hmm.
You know, there's a science of your karmic reactions. So a lot of times they do talk about, like, if you've been very generous and you're very good and you're like this, then in your next life you're way more, you're likely to probably get, in a body where you're gonna just feel happy. So what we do see is people who are generally, and I've seen this, just like you see this generally just normally, people who are just nice, kind, good-hearted people and stuff like this.
That it's not a challenge for them to be like
It's not a
that.
challenge to be like this. Um, Sometimes you see that's probably from their past lives or whatever, but you also know that, you see they're just happier people. They're happier people and stuff like this. And sometimes people are just born in the right families. So we do talk about it. So you could be just born in the right family, or you could be born, you don't choose that. So that's your karmic reactions from your past lives. Depends on what you've done in your past life and you're born. There's actually a really interesting story I heard recently about a family of devotees who were with a child that was in a wheelchair, and he had no legs, the child. But he was like really, they were like really dedicated to the Hare Krishna movement. They were serving, they were preaching. Even the child was chanting Hare Krishna on his beat, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And he was chanting all the time, but he had his face like, it was like this. It was always like really angry, but he's always there. You know what I mean? But he couldn't move. He was in his wheelchair, and it seems like he hated his parents, and they didn't understand. So this was in South America. So what they did is they got this guy who goes into regression, past lives, and what they did is that they got I think they brought the father underneath hypnosis, so
Hmm.
they go into to see his past lives. So they bring him underneath, and what happens? They see that he's in charge of a farm, and they have horses, and they have like this one horse that's like doing really well and it's making a lot of money. So they really focus on this one horse and they're trying to make some cash, and they travel around the world, well, not around the world, but around America. I think they saw a flag or something, and try to make this horse win. And the mother went on the hypnosis, and she, what happened? And she, oh yeah, she was like the one who was feeding the horse, so she saw herself also feeding the horse. And then after that, they wanted to get the child, but the child didn't want to, or he was like hectic about it. And so he eventually said, okay, I'll do it. And he goes, but he doesn't go under hypnosis. So they didn't get some like doctor's permissions or things like this to give him some, I think, CBD or something.
Hmm.
So then he goes under hypnosis, and then he goes into his past life, and he comes back and he starts saying, yeah, I was the horse. I was the horse in this family, and they were taking me, and I just didn't want to run. I just didn't want to walk anymore because they really like fucked him up by injecting him with some hormones for his legs so he could run more, so they could make more money. So he was born in this family. So you just there's and we have there's different also like different situations that we encounter in this life that's gonna help us to learn things that we haven't learned in our past lives that we have to learn in this life. So sometimes you find yourself in a really hard situation or in a really hard family or something like that. It's technically one of the reasons is because you've done something that you really need to learn about in this life and try
Hmm.
to sort that out now. So it might be hard, it might be tricky, it might be painful, but if you could just work on it, try to see how you can learn from the situation as you improve, and then yeah, so
Yeah, I think that karma is so interesting. And it's also, I think about this a lot as well. And it's so, for me, it's easy to logically conceptualize because if you hurt someone, and I don't mean necessarily physically, if you hurt someone in any way, even if you're not consciously aware of it, you are still aware of it. Even if you don't, your brain doesn't allow you to understand that you've hurt someone,
hmm
it still basically adds baggage. That's
hmm
what we call it, just adding little bits of baggage on. And
exactly.
like, if you're living an unpleasant life and being unpleasant to other people, that just builds up, builds up, builds up, builds up. And your ego will build up and up and up and up and up to protect you from all the shit you're doing. So your ego will be telling you that you are great and everything's fine and you're great. And then all this junk will be building up, building up, building up, building up. And it's a classic case, or it's a classic thing that happens when people get too into drugs or alcohol or anything like that, then they're just, in general, if you're taking too much of anything, you're not pleasant for the people that are closest to you. You know, you're selfish, you're anxious, paranoid, all these different things, maybe aggressive, and it all just builds up and it builds up. But until you can somehow get some consciousness, if either by stopping those things or by breaking away or by a penny dropping or by therapy, you can't start clearing away all this karma. And it's something that I really noticed. I think we spoke about it before. Like, I had a problem with drink and drugs, and then throughout that whole time, I just wasn't aware that I was a total prick. Like, a lot of the time, to my family and to like the people that I loved and all that. And then when I stopped doing that, I realized, I was like, oh my God. And I had to basically just process all the things I had not processed for so long. And then I was only, I don't know, like 20, it was like 2 years ago when I stopped everything, you know, so I was only like 26. And I was just thinking to myself, what happens when people experience this when they're 40, 50, 60, and they've got 50 years of shit that they have to process? And maybe, like, it took me, I'm still processing stuff now, 2 years later. And if you've got an extra 20, 30, 40 years, maybe it'll take you 10 years to process all the stuff, like to go through everything. And in Alcoholics Anonymous, like with the recovery step there, one of them is called inventorying, I think, where basically you try and write down every bad thing you've ever done that you can think of, everyone you've ever hurt, and then you reach out to the people if it's appropriate, you know, like reach out to the people and say, like, I'm sorry for that, and try and make amends for it. Or if you can't make amends, or it's not a good idea to be dragging up the past with that person, you just have to kind of process it. But then as I started processing all these things, it was literally 100% like weight was getting lifted off.
Right. Yeah.
It was like my energy levels, my baseline energy levels were just increasing. And just my ability to just move and do things was just increasing as I was processing this. And I was like, this is it's such a simple concept that, and the, you know, the past lives and future lives and reincarnation, to me, it also kind of just, it makes sense. And learning things in this life, you know, some people are put in really shit situations. But those people, in my experience, the ones that have had the hardest times end up being the best people and doing the sickest stuff, you know, because they're like, if they manage to break out of it and recover, they're just so strong because they've had to deal with so much crazy stuff and had a really tough just shit thrown on them. And I think it's like, I don't believe or disbelieve in multiple lives. I would lean towards more believing in it, but to me it's not important whether or not it is true, but living as if it were true is definitely a good idea, I think. And I like to think of us as like computer game characters where we're just leveling up. We've got these list of skills which we can just put time into and level them up. And maybe you're born amazing at communicating and controlling your emotions, or maybe you're born really creative but really emotional, and then, you know, your challenge is figuring that out. Or maybe you're really physically strong but you're a bit slower at picking stuff up. Do you know what I mean? Everyone's got their own little niche and thing they're good at, and it's like just leveling these things up. And then when you die, I think it makes sense for us to be sort of recycled in some way and pass through another stage of that. Because when you think, otherwise it would have to mean that new consciousness would have to be continually produced, as opposed to being recycled from consciousness that's already there from a big bang that's been exploded out, where in theory everything that if the big bang is how it happened, then in theory everything that is now was always there, which means that new consciousness can't be being created. It has to be being recycled or changed from something into consciousness, you know, like changed from a stone into consciousness. Like, that's a stupid example, but it has to be being it can't be created or destroyed. That's the fundamental law of energy. Cannot create it, cannot destroy it. It can only be transferred. So to me, thinking of that, maybe it is that. And I also like thinking that the the space, what we
Yeah.
see in space, like what we call dark matter, um, and just space that's in a vacuum. I like to think of that as like a hard drive, where that's where we go for a little bit, and then maybe we get recycled. Like consciousness, it kind of goes up there, and all the memories and all the experiences, like all the records of everything that's ever happened, is just floating about up there that could be accessed at some point. Um, but I think it's so exciting. I do think that probably within 1 century, we will be able to transfer consciousness from, like your body into another body or a robot body. I reckon that we'll be able to manipulate and move it within 100 years.
Yeah, I mean, the yogis can do that already. They can. I mean, there's like, I think even Sadhguru speaks about this. Speaks about how you could literally control your life force so much that you're able to control where your soul is going to go and which body it could go into next. Um, which is interesting in a sense, like. But what happens is that we try not to like, as a Hare Krishnas, we try not to like deal too much with these kind of things of like where the body's gonna go and stuff like this. What we try to do is just trying to go like, just try to like go back to Godhead in a sense. That's kind of like the final goal in a sense. And the way to get there is like 8 processes, 9 processes. One's praying, chanting, hearing, speaking, and
Service.
service. Exactly. So there's like those are some of the processes that we kind of try to focus on that sometimes, and not so much on like how do you call it, where can we put the how do you call it, where can the soul go, what mystical powers can I get, so like this.
So it's more just practical. What can I definitely do,
Exactly.
which
What
is
can I definitely
definitely going
do?
to improve my life.
Exactly, which is going to help me eternally, really. Because a lot of those things, what happens is that if you go back and even if you, let's say, for example, as a Buddhist, they get back into the effulgence of God, which is into Brahma. All right, so Brahma would be the energy of gods, which is kind of like abstract. You don't know exactly what it is. It's like the effulgence, like the sun. You have the sun globe, and you have the sun rays. It's kind of like the sun rays, like the gas you were talking about before, with the gas. And you can go back into God and that. But then what happens when material nature is created again after the whole destruction of everything? Then those souls will go back into the material world and continue through this long process of birth and death, old age, disease, birth, death, old age, disease, and continues in this process. So you want to kind of break that cycle 100% and go straight back to the spiritual world, where there you will not get to fall back into the spiritual world. I mean, to the material world, you will not experience any of those birth, death, sufferings, or anything like that at all. So,
So the material world is almost like a punishment.
in a
No,
sense,
punishment. No,
yeah,
is the
a
wrong
little
word.
bit.
But from what you're making it sound like, the spirit world is pure and amazing and blissful, eternal. Could be what we would call heaven.
Yeah.
And the material world, which
Yeah.
we are in, is pain, suffering,
Yeah.
growth. Of course, there's plenty of happiness, but
Yeah.
it's a lot of life is suffering.
Yeah.
And the more you suffer, the more you grow, basically.
Exactly.
But it's almost like the material world is hell.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I suppose that if you're thinking of traditional Christian religion and it talks about heaven and hell, and if you're good, you go to heaven. So that's basically what you're saying. If you're good, then you go up to heaven and you can live in the spirit world. If you're bad, you go to hell.
Yeah.
Maybe that could mean that you're recycled back into hell, which is where we are now, because it's hell compared to what it would be in heaven.
Yeah, but also like we talk about is like 3 levels. There's the spiritual world, which is with back with Godhead, and then there's the heavenly planets, which is above us. Then there's the earth, which is in the middle, which we're in the marginal place, and then there's the hellish planets, which are below us.
Okay, so when you're saying planets, are you referring to the actual planets that we see, or are
Yeah,
these okay?
yeah.
So which are the good ones and which are the bad ones?
I don't know exactly. Like if you read the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a nice book on how do you call it, on the creation, on the stories that happens in relation with gods. But it gives you the whole explanation of the creation, the explanation of different types of planets, where they are, the names of those planets. Um,
But they are the 7 planets, the main planets that we recognize are the same, different names, but the same actual planets we
I think
recognize.
so. Yeah, I know one of them is like the polar star. Is a star. Even I think even the moon. Yeah, yeah. So there's those planets. There's some we can't see them because some entities you can't see. Like, for example, ghosts and things like this. You can't really see them, but they might be there. You know what I mean? So it's kind of the same thing when it comes down to how do you call it? These planets. You think you see them, but you don't, or you might. You don't even think you don't see them, technically. But there's actually people there. That's what the Srimad Bhagavatam talks about. And to be honest, I haven't read that book. I listen to a few classes every now and then. What we do is when we listen to the classes, we go from one verse and there's an explanation. We listen to that. But the Bhagavad Gita is like just beforehand. So we read about the Bhagavad Gita way before, and that gives us the instructions of what the soul is, what the soul is not, all the instructions of how to become. Like you said, there's a lot of happiness, suffering in this world. How to break away from that, where you go into blissfulness, go into peace, technically. So even if you're going to be happy, like when you're ecstatic and you walk around, go, ah, you know that later on you might gonna feel kind of maybe a bit exhausted. Like when you take drugs, when you take like MDMA, you feel like super happy, but then 3 days later you got the drop, the down. So it's a bit like that sometimes. So yeah, so that's the how do you call it? That's the Bhagavad Gita, which is really interesting. But then the Srimad Bhagavatam gives you all the explanations of different planets, stuff like this. But I don't read it that much. I read some parts, but I've never read the whole creation part.
Because the Bhagavad Gita, that's the Hindu Bible, effectively, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that, as far as I understand as well, it's something that it's why I think the Indian, like spirituality is so interesting, because it comes from my understanding, it stems from the Vedic scriptures, which were written approximately, I think it's about 5,000 years ago, and you've got all these scrolls which one person would not be able to read them all in a whole lifetime of reading, which is crazy. And one of the things, I started studying Ayurveda for a bit. So Ayurveda means science of life, um, and it's basically in how to eat foods that are good for you specifically. So you try and figure out your dosha, which is your kind of food orientation. It's based on the concepts of the elements, so earth, air, water, fire, and ether, and the combination of those that you have in your body, which foods will be good for you, which kind of heat you up, which cool you down, which will speed up your digestion, which will not. And obviously we are all different, so we shouldn't really be eating the same things. But what I just think is amazing is that the Vedic scriptures, they bring up the five elements. So earth, air, water, fire, ether is what we call them in English. But they say that everything in the entire world is made up of those five elements. So five particles, let's call them. Western science thought that the atom was the smallest particle up until the last century. I can't remember what date. But then they found five particles smaller than an atom. And this is exactly what they said 5,000 years ago in the Vedic scriptures. They called them different things, and we're like, oh, earth, air, water, fire, and ether. Like, that's so stupid. But then when you actually start thinking about it, it's like, wait a minute, it kind of makes sense. It makes total sense. And they talk about what you mentioned before, about how we're not in an age where we can access these high levels of kundalini or energy or spirit, whatever you want to call it. And I 100% agree with that. I 100% believe that we have devolved. As technology increases, humans devolve dramatically in terms of understanding about the elements, the body, the mind.
You lose touch with reality.
Like with total reality, and the Vedic scriptures talk about the body and internal processes in such depth that Western medicine is only starting to re-explain these things now. And I think, like, this is obviously just a theory with absolutely no evidence, but I think that they had such a powerful level of meditation that they could basically see what's going on inside their body. They could be like, this my liver feels a bit weird today, and they could kind of feel really strongly what was going on. And I've had two small glimpses of how that might have been possible. Like, I meditated for about a year with basically zero, I don't want to say results because it's the wrong word, but results basically. I noticed no benefit, hated every minute of it. And then I just remember one time I then got into the body scan meditations,
I still go through that
which
7 years later.
but like I started getting into body scan meditations, which I way preferred because instead
Yeah,
of like focus on your breath, it's like focus on your right toe, focus on your foot, focus on your ankle,
that's right.
and it's like for me it was so much more accessible to do that. Like the first thing I ever did was focus on your heart, and then I suddenly was able to feel my heartbeat, and I was like, oh my god. And I was like, trying to slow it down and speed it up, and I don't know if I was, but then there was one time where it was saying focus on the right hemisphere of your brain. So it's like focusing on that, lying there, having that nice kind of like warm little fuzzy glow you get from the meditations, and then I just felt this like it was as if a switch just flipped, and the whole right hand side of my body just went vroom, filled with energy, and it was like it was like someone just opened a tap of blood into that whole side of my body, and I was like, whoa. I was like, this is crazy. And I tried to do it loads of times after that, and it never happened again.
Dude, that happened to me. Same thing when it happened to me when, like in Buddhism, they talk about this. So like in Vipassana, is the exact technique. You go through the sensations of your body. You go from top of your head and you go down. You just scan your body from up to toe, from head to toe. And what happens? You're supposed to be equanimous through all of that. So what happens is
Equanimous.
that equanimous.
What's that mean?
Equanimous is when you're like neither trying to get, or trying to be attached to those like pleasurable things, or try to avert yourself from like trying to like evade certain like suffering feelings. When like, I don't want this suffering, that's kind of like going, I don't want it. Or when you want something pleasurable like food or something, like, oh, this tastes good, sugar, like give me this. So those are
Equanimous
like,
is in the middle.
this is like in the middle, being equanimous.
So
Yeah.
you're just like
Equipoised,
you're just
equanimous. Yeah.
kind of
Just
allowing,
just
just
exactly, just
letting.
letting it be, allowing exactly in that state. And I remember like when I was meditating, I used to go through a lot of suffering like you do, and I still go through a lot of suffering. And sometimes I just don't even want to meditate, or when I meditate, I'm thinking about getting out of there. I'm just, when am I going to leave? So you're going through all these like, anxious, feelings, stress sometimes. Or if you go through a hard situation, you just feel angry or whatever. Or your pain hurts, or your body hurts, and you're suffering in that like physical form. So yeah, I remember one time something happened to me where I started feeling like just this wave of pleasure coming through my body. And I was like, oh, like, this is it.
Yes.
I was like, yeah. And it's literally, I remember like the moment I thought about it, just thinking about, oh, yes, I want this, it went and it just disappeared. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I was not able to control it because even by the time I thought it was already gone. It was like, it was just too slow. It was like this before the thoughts even happened. I don't even know what that place is called, but it was before they even happened. It was just gone. It was like, it was impossible for me to. So you really have to be like equanimous through those situations. Just try to be balanced as much as you can and stuff like that. So, but that's the meditative thing. But I really like the Ayurveda stuff because as Hare Krishnas, we do study the Ayurveda ourselves also.
Okay.
We do a lot of Ayurveda because obviously we study the Vedas. So what we do is we study the Vedas so the Ayurveda is like, as you said, what was it?
Science of life.
Science of life, exactly. Science of life. So there's a lot to do with health.
Because
Right?
Veda means science,
Yeah,
and Ayur means life.
exactly.
So like the Vedic scriptures are them recording
Exactly.
their understanding of science.
Exactly.
And as I understand it as well, yoga, meditation, Ayurveda, which relates a lot to food, they all come from these Vedic scriptures.
That's right.
And it's crazy.
Yeah. No, the Vedas,
It's crazy.
everything is what we study is technically the Vedic scriptures. Right? We just study a few parts of it. We don't study even Ayurveda, but because obviously we complement our lifestyle. So the Bhagavad Gita is in the Ayurveda. I mean, it's in the Vedas. There's a whole bunch of the Srimad Bhagavatam is in the Vedas. There's a whole bunch of stuff that are in the Vedas is what we study about Krishna being Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is in there. Ayurveda is really interesting. You can see this watch over here. These bracelets is from my Ayurvedic doctor. He said like these are the planets that kind of like, he did numerology for me, which I never did before in my life. I was like, whatever.
Numerology is cool.
Huh?
Numerology is cool.
It's cool, yeah. And he told me like I need to put some crystals on. I need to have gold on me because they kind of balance out some of my planets and things like this, and things that are missing within my numbers, like stability and things like this. And maybe this brings stability to my life. I don't know. So yeah, I love Ayurveda, and I got a doctor here in Barcelona, and he's kind of like my guru, like my doctor guru.
What's your date of birth?
The 3rd of January 1987.
Oh, you're master number 11.
Oh
Same
yeah?
as me.
Oh what?
You're master number 11. You're the exact same as me.
Oh yeah? How do you call it? I think this year is our year apparently.
I'm not sure about that.
Oh.
The main thing that I know is that, so what I just did there is you add up all the numbers in your date of birth. So for you, it'd be 1, 3, 1, 9. Did you say 8, 7?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So 4, 14, 29. Then you add up the 2 and the 9, it makes 11.
Hmm.
And so 11 is a master number because you add up 11 and it makes 2. So it's like they call it 11 2.
Hmm.
And you have two numbers. So the master numbers are supposed to have a tougher time in the beginning, but then they go on to lead. And then each number has a different, like um, like a number 1 is a leader as well. Number 2 is about balance, and I can't remember all of them off the top of my heart, top of my head. But like you're finding out your master number tells you your role in life.
Interesting.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. He told me a whole bunch of stuff like that, you know. But it's interesting that you said that about how do you call it, that you have to go through very hards, but then you end up leading stuff like this. Where I definitely feel like in my life, like now, I did some meditation classes before, but like on Saturdays now, I do this. So there's some yoga friends of mine. We've like joined forces, and they do a yoga class, and then I come in at the end, and I do a 15-20 minute meditation. We do mantra meditation, so we do the vibrational sound, which is also really nice because you don't have to be sitting in one position. You can be standing, walking, just by saying the vibration within itself, and then the power of the vibration. If I say to you like, "Oh, you're so beautiful," "Oh, you're so cute," you know what I mean? That gives you a smile, gives you something when something happens to you. So just words have an effect on us. So mantras also have an effect on us. Actually, before mantra could actually heal the body in certain just Ayurvedic ways. They just tell you a mantra and boom, you just like. So like nowadays it might be harder to do that, but
But if, if we were if we weren't eating shit and doing stupid stuff and taking stuff and we were focusing on ourselves, we probably would be receptive to those healings. Like, for example, I've heard that cats, the reason why cats were so um, revered was because their meows and their purring, the vibrations of that was healing. So that's
interesting.
why Egyptians loved cats so much because that purr is so calming to us. You know, having a cat on
Oh,
your lap purring at you is so calming,
mm,
so relaxing.
interesting.
Um, so it's really interesting with the thing about vibrations, and
Mm,
there's like a few things I've learned recently about vibrations. Like everything vibrates and has its own frequency. So a static thing, a stone, a wall, a person, and everybody, we talk about liking that person's vibe. That person's got a good vibe, and that person's vibration might literally match your vibration. And then it's like, oh, cool, this
yeah.
person's bouncing at the same pace as me. But then there's been a few pretty cool experiments and new research and science, which is exploring the use of vibration now. So one thing is that if you if you get a wine glass like that, right, and you start making it go beep like that by rubbing it around the rim, and then you get a tuning fork which has the same pitch as it, and you hit the tuning fork, the wine glass will smash. So if it matches the frequency, it will amplify that frequency more and more and more and more and more, and it will smash. And there's this bridge as well, and it's called like the vibrating bridge or something like that. I can't remember where it was, but the bridge has its own frequency that it vibrates at. And then for whatever reason, the wind was hitting that bridge at the same frequency. The bridge, this massive, like proper car carrying bridge, you can see it on video, just starts basically just twisting like this and just explodes, basically, just falls into the thing. And now scientists, based on that and the understanding of vibration and how you can amplify something to the point of breaking it, now what they've done is they've been using harmonics, which is basically doubling the frequency of something. So say something's like vibrating at 1,000 hertz, the harmonic of that would be 2,000 hertz. And what they've done is they were trying to destroy cells, specifically cancer cells, and they just tried literally. They spent years trying all the different frequencies and combination of frequencies they could, and they found, I think it was 11,000 hertz at the 13th and the 13th harmonic of that. So it'd be like 11,000 and then like 143 or something thousand hertz. I think it was that. And they basically played these two frequencies together and destroyed cancer cells because they matched the vibration of these cells and just killed them.
Yeah.
And I think, again, that older civilizations had really strong understanding of these type of technologies
Oh, yeah,
that
definitely.
we've just left behind.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, for example, there's theories that in ancient Greece and ancient Egypt, they have big, just giant poles sticking up. And even now, we have columns, places that are just big poles. And originally, they would have been made out of metal with certain alloys and different metals inside of them, which would have caused the vibration. And some theories say that they were trying to vibrate these things at a certain frequency to basically calm or make people happy around in the area because it's constantly just like emitting this frequency. And nowadays, you go on YouTube and you type in meditation, it'll be like 432 hertz positivity meditation,
Yeah,
like
yeah, 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 yeah.
132
That's true.
sleep meditation, or whatever it is, and all these different things. And now it's one of those things that if you tell someone it, they're like, "Oh, that sounds like mumbo jumbo voodoo," but then you're like, "Wait a minute, like this is already happening. Why are these people just? There's something there. Obviously, something there."
Yeah.
I think it's so cool.
It's actually really, really interesting. Actually, what you're talking about, yeah, how the vibrations and stuff like that. Yeah, yeah. Actually, if you read the Mahabharata, the Mahabharats. So what we got sometimes we got to realize. Well, what I try, even myself, like you just realize that even within these sometimes stories of like the Mahabharata or the Srimad Bhagavatam, sometimes they might sound like fictional or like on things that never actually happened, but these are actually stories that actually did happen. These are actually scientific. You can actually see some parts that were written in these books that are still present in India, in those places that were there. And some parts of the histories, or what they claim in these books, are 100% like evidential even today. And one of the cool things is that in the Mahabharats, where you read, it's like super epic. It's like battles on a constant level. It's like amazing. And one of the things there is that they used to like create huge weapons, just by a mantra. They used to have, and they actually even they even had um, the atomic energy back then, and they used to have it by creating a mantra, and boom, they could like create these huge atomic things. Nowadays, obviously, you spoke about this a bit before, was that now we're living in the age of Kali Yuga. So there's different types of yugas. So there's Satya Yuga, and there's Mobaduga, and Duga and Yubiduga Yuga. So there's all these different types. But now we're in the age of Kali Yuga, which is the age of like quarrel and distress. So what happens is we're kind of going. That's what you say. We're kind of going downhill in this kind of age, and it's gonna last for like millions of years still. I don't know how many millions of years, but it's still gonna be lasting for millions and millions and millions of years. But it's gonna get worse because we see intelligence goes down. Lifespan is gonna go down. Technology as it increases, also we become like more stupid. So memory goes down. A whole bunch of stuff. So yeah, so that's also happening in this age. That's happening. We also like, even like for example, like we reinvented like how do you call it, the atomic
Hmm.
bomb. But what did we use it for? We use it to actually kill and cause a whole bunch of damage to innocent people. Whereas back in the day, the ones you could use, they were using it for the good. They were just trying to kill those demons.
Hmm.
And that is it. And so it's just like it's shit how time has changed. But yeah.
But I think that I've heard recently that now they're experimenting with using sound to actually weaponizing sound, but also using sound to put out fires, which
Interesting.
is pretty crazy.
Pretty
Like
crazy,
just effectively sending some vibration again, some frequency
And that,
to just
yeah,
destroy the fire somehow, which is pretty cool,
yeah, it's pretty cool.
but pretty scary because then you could just take this machine and just start blasting it at people,
Exactly, yeah.
and then just like absolutely obliterate
That's right.
people with sound. I think that technology's been around, being developed for quite a while,
Mm.
but I've heard things before about uh, India having atomic technology before and having found remnants of like what they think was atomic explosions back in India. And did India have the atomic weapon like however many thousands of years ago? Maybe,
No,
maybe.
exactly. So how do you call it? The um 1 second. It has it on my head. I'm getting a bit distracted by the noise outside. The what was it you were saying? About the atomic.
India having the atomic bomb.
Yeah, there's something else you said beforehand that was interesting.
Sound
Vibration.
putting out fire, vibration.
Oh yeah, this is it. So what happens is that it's really like we talk about this a lot. Is how like what type of leaders do we have nowadays? Like if you really see the type of leaders we have nowadays, it's really, really, really bad. There's people with no good qualities, no like moral conduct. And what happens? These people are actually in the leadership roles, so people follow those people, and this is really crap. Should we tell those guys that we're doing a podcast? Just because they're like moving chairs and shit. It might be bad sound or.
I don't think it picks up the sound on here.
Doesn't? Oh, okay, cool.
No,
Okay,
I don't think so.
Okay. So anyway, so like yeah, so there's one of the things that we do try to like propagate is try to become a civilized person, a person with good qualities, with morals, with codes, especially if you are in a position of power, especially if you're a teacher, if you're a mother, if you're a father, if you're a government agent or whatever it is, so you're in a position of power. Because now you see it nowadays, just like how people are in this position of powers and they just don't know, they have no basis of being like good quality people. And they just use all this and they use it for the bad. They don't know how to do it, or even just like being faithful, for example. You see all these people who are in, powerful positions who just don't know how to control their sex, or people who are, just like bads to other people, or people who are just, and what we try to do is trying to change that in a sense. The Hare Krishnas actually is a preaching movement. There's a movement of preaching the Hare Krishna movement all around the world, and trying to actually bring back God consciousness to humanity, because that is where we believe is that once you go, I mean, you can find good morals anyway. You don't have to be God conscious to be a good person. It's not like you have to. But when you do try to establish yourself in a like with morals, with codes, certain understandings, you really just you elevate yourself up so quickly. So, for example, just with empathy. So, if you want to develop like empathy and compassion, it's going to be very hard for you to develop those qualities if you eat meat. One of the reasons why is because ahimsa means non-violence. So you go to like the gross and to the subtle. So the gross would be where when you kill, obviously if you're the person who's killing, then obviously you're going to get big karmic reactions. But your compassion and your your love and compassion for other people is going to diminish because you're in this like place of killing and hurt and pains. So it's going to be very hard for you to have compassion and empathy for other people. But if you become a vegetarian, for example, you start to work on the qualities of non-violence. So you're not entering into the cycle of killing. Even though, okay, let's say you're non-vegetarian, but you don't kill the animal, but you're still kind of within that cycle. And also, whatever you got to remember that there's consciousness within. I mean, there's at least energy within what we eat. So if we eat those animals who are being killed, things like this, then that also that type of like energy also comes into us.
We it's not just if they've been killed. It's like if they've grown up in cages, and do you know what I mean? Like, it's like exactly. I think it's totally different, and it's a real. In some ways, I actually respect it when people go out to. It doesn't really exist so much in these countries, but in places like America where they go out to these big wildlife retreats and they go and they shoot a deer or whatever like that. Because number one, that's hard. Yeah. It's genuinely really hard to track and shoot and kill a deer. Yeah. But number two, you're at least pulling the trigger. Yeah. You're at least dragging it, and probably you're going to be using as much of that as you possibly can. And that deer will not know what's hit it. Yeah. It will hopefully die pretty quickly, so it won't have these negative traumatic experiences inside them. Yeah. But I totally I went vegan about 2 years ago. And last time we spoke, I told you I was struggling a little bit with it at the moment. Mm-hmm. I haven't slipped up. I haven't slipped up, but I've just been just having an internal struggle with it. Yeah. But
have a cigarette
instead. Smoke crack.
Smoke crack. Just don't kill animals, bro.
But the compassion thing, I totally understand, because when I stopped eating meat, for me it started with not wanting to even waste food, like
Yeah.
throw away these grapes, and I can explain that story another time. But um, then I was like, wait a minute, if I'm not going to waste grapes and I'm concerned about wasting food, uh, how am I going to be then ordering a fucking lamb curry?
Mm.
Like, that doesn't make sense. And it'd been playing on my mind, and then I stopped that. And then I was like, I'd stopped eating meat, but I carried on with the milk and cheese and all that stuff for a while. And then I was like, this makes absolute no sense. Like, there's just no way
Mm.
that there's no way that you can ethically take eggs. Yeah, maybe eggs you can, in theory, in
In
theory,
theory, yeah,
ethically take an
yeah,
egg,
yeah,
but milk you cannot ethically take
yeah,
that. Cheese can't ethically do
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
No way. So I was like, this it wasn't good enough for me. But then you do start.
Actually, the Hare Krishnas have like we have farms which are non-violent farms, so which means that even once the cow gives out milk, um, actually they give out milk even before they have calves. But if they give out even the milk, first is always the milk goes to the calf always, but then after that we don't kill the animals, and there's no mild like treatment of the animals of the cows. So we have like the biggest cow protection in the world, to give us like some milk that we can use for like for example for
But
drinking or that's like, we're the only ones. We're the only ones to do that because there's
yeah,
no money in it.
there's no money, and also
No,
the what a lot of people don't realize is that obviously cows only produce milk when they are either pregnant
no, no,
or
no,
have recently calved.
no, no, no.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I've seen it with my own eyes, and I know about it because we are the biggest cow protection in the world in time because we love cows because Krishna loves cows, so we like the cow lovers if you want to call us. And how do you call it? And we actually have a cow who's actually I don't remember her name exactly, but we have 10 cows in the farm down here in close to Madrid, and one of them has never given birth, and she gives plenty of milk. She's never given birth. And also we have calves that have just also been born in with I think I don't know what age they start giving milk, but they give milk even before they can even have babies. So they actually give
So
milk
cows
freely.
produce milk.
Yeah, constantly. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I thought it was like humans.
No, 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 no. Yeah, it's totally. It's one of the misconceptions of like one of the vegan like philosophy, which is completely not based on fact at all. Like the one that we do accept, and this is why a lot of Hare Krishnas are also vegans, is because it's on the suffering of the animals
Mm.
to take the milk, and also at the end by killing the cow. Um, so yeah, and actually, if you and sometimes the cows don't give milk if they're really badly treated. So if they feel fear and scared, they're very sensitive animals. So if they feel fear or if they feel uncomfortable stuff like this, they also don't produce milk. But if they have a calf, they'll produce milk. But even it'll be under stressful conditions. But in the
But
farms we have cows giving milk constantly.
they must be specific types of cows.
No, no, no.
Yeah, because like my family's got cows in Ireland. They
Hmm.
always have, and none of the cows get milked.
None of them.
None of them,
But why don't they milk them?
because they raise them for they raise them for slaughter. They raise them and then they birth
Mm,
them. But I think it's only milking cows, because
mm.
my understanding was that once a cow gets pregnant, then it's the same as human. Then they start lactating, and then you can keep them lactating forever.
Mm.
But if you stop milking them, then they'll stop producing milk.
Yeah, maybe that also maybe that might
So I don't
happen.
think the cows. I don't think mammals just produce milk randomly.
I don't know if it's like a random thing, but if you milk it, they will give you cat. It will give you milk. That's 100% sure. Like I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen it and I've experienced it and I've spoken to hundreds of people who know exactly about this. Well, especially in our farms. Because our farms we have cow protection farms. So they're ahimsa, how do you call it? They're ahimsa farms, which is where it's non-violent towards the cows in a situation. And there you could drink the nicest milk you can ever drink in the world. It is absolutely delicious.
Mm.
And it's so nice. And it's like you just because the cows there are hugged, they're decorated, they're looked after, so they feel happy. So apparently when they feel happy and they feel comfortable, they give milk freely.
Huh. Well,
Yeah,
I didn't know
even for
that.
humans. Yeah,
I'll double check that. I didn't
yeah,
know
check
that.
it out. Yeah, check it out.
But because I also was always confused about. I know that in India cows are like loved. They're kind of like holy
Exactly.
animals.
Holy animals, exactly.
And I also thought, how do they? Because obviously India's got loads of people, and there's absolutely no way you could be providing milk ethically to those people. So I thought, how do they get around that in their own conscience by, I'd never looked into it, but I imagine they must have to factory farm them the same way that the rest of the world does.
Yeah,
Like,
or I think they, like India's going towards that a lot more, and to animal slaughtering and to cow slaughtering now. So that is a problem that the Hare Krishnas are trying to deal with.
but
You
like
know,
the milking, I mean, like how are they? Because to produce milk for so many people, they must have to be kind of robotically milking and all those type of things,
yeah,
or
yeah.
maybe they do hand milk them. I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know how
There's a
they
lot
do
of
it.
people in India. So.
But like, yeah, that's what I mean. It's like, but then with the compassion thing, that also does just make total sense. Because then when you start thinking, I don't want to kill this animal, then it's like, wait a minute, how can I be doing any harm to a person when I'm fussed about a
Exactly.
chicken?
Exactly. So actually, if you go to the subtle parts of ahimsa or vegetarianism, the principle of vegetarianism, which is non-violence, you go into also like speaking good words. So when you speak nicely, if you put anybody under distress or under anxiety, because it's very easy sometimes to put somebody under anxiety for some stupid thing. You're like, "Oh, hurry the fuck up because blah blah blah, or do this because," and technically you don't really give a shit about it yourself. You just stressed out yourself and you just putting this on somebody else. And you do that kind of stuff. That's putting stress and anxiety on somebody else. That is also within itself. How do you call it? Ahimsa and the non-vegetarian, the idea of this. So the more subtle, that like
Mm,
landscape of it, but it's still there. Like so. So that's why the principles are very important. That's why we have the four principles of like no, how do you call it? No meat eating,
hmm
no intoxications, um, uh, gambling, no gambling, and then no illicit sex, which is the hardest of them all.
Yeah.
Sex before marriage,
So
technically.
how are you doing on those four? What's the word for them? Hamsters,
Principles, yeah,
principles.
principles, yeah, yeah.
So
So
how are you doing on those four?
me personally, like I've recently fell in the smoking and smoke intoxication one. Like I've been drinking a little bit. I've been smoking, and yeah, I think like last month was like a really intense month. And just like spiritually, I think the planets were in a certain position, and every year there's like a spiritual month, and it was there, and I was going through intensity, and so I feel like I had to kind of like let go on some principle, like because I'm holding on to like the illicit sex, like I'm
Hmm
holding on to that one, which is the no sex before marriage. Because to be honest, like not having sex feels amazing, man. Well, having sex feels amazing too, but like not having sex, you get this like energy, and you hold in your semen and stuff like this, and it's just like for men, it's like absolutely powerful, and your consciousness also change. Yours is really what's really nice is that you start to see women as like friends, and yeah, and you don't really see them as a sexual object anymore. And sex kind of goes out the window a lot more. So you really start to develop like really nice friendships with so many different people, with women and men, which is really, really nice. And I really believe like for me, if I want to find like somebody in the future, I really want to be holding up on the whole like sex situation and just waiting and just developing, at least trying to focus on something else. I think sex is important within a relationship, but I just want to focus on something else than sex
Mm.
for the moment, because I think that if we have too much sex with too many people, then sometimes maybe the relationship can be a bit what's it called? Um, it can hinder the relationship a little bit if there's too much sex in it.
Well,
So
it's letting lust take over, isn't it? And
exactly, letting
lust
us
is
take over.
not. It's one of the
Exactly.
seven deadly sins.
Yeah, yeah.
So I
So
suppose that it's
yeah, yeah,
not
yeah.
like if it's sex expressed, if it's love expressed through sex, fine.
Hmm.
But if it's not, then
Exactly.
really you're
Exactly.
not doing anyone any favors, including
Exactly.
yourself.
Exactly.
So how long have you like were do you think you were especially promiscuous before?
Yeah. Fuck yeah. Yeah. I still like. I think my biggest addiction is women.
Okay.
I definitely put this on my. I don't really talk about this too much, like, but like definitely I'd think like my biggest addiction. I love just women. And the funny thing is, all my friends are all like bisexual and like super open, like sexually and stuff like this, and I'm hanging out with them all the time. But technically, I could. I mean, it's nice to have free love, or polyamorous love and all this kind of stuff. It's nice, but I just like for me personally, I just love like women. I love women. Like if there's a woman around, I'm just like, I want to talk to you. Maybe I was a woman in my past life, like, so I love being around women. So it's one of my nice things. Yeah.
Do you think then that out of those four, you know, a lot of people would, I suppose, would go straight for the if they were going to be like real strict, would probably go straight for the intoxication one. Do you think that you've gone extra strict on the, well, 100% strict on the sex one because for you that was your biggest kind of
Yeah.
crutch?
Interesting. Yeah, yeah. Like I haven't really analyzed that too much as you just like it. But it's a good analysis. Um, one of the most important ones is the vegetarianism one. So that technically it kind of happened naturally anyway. So I was like bingo bango. Then you kind of stop the intoxications onto a certain level because it's like maybe a bit easier, but because the sexual pleasure that we get is the highest pleasure. They say it's one of the reasons why we are in this material world is based on passion. Right? So the hellish planets is based on ignorance, top planets based on goodness, and these ones here are based on passion. So what happens? Sex is part of passion. So it's like it's part of this world. It's one of the things that keeps us attached to the material world is sexual pleasure. Um, so yeah, so definitely like I wanna be able. I was very addicted to women. I was also addicted to weed, but like women was definitely on my biggest addiction. I have to say. So yeah, I suppose like now I think I let go a little bit on the intoxication because I didn't want to let go on just like kind of just having sex because I feel very happy just not like focusing on that right now, you know. But it's not like I don't. I mean, in the past 4 years, I've like controlled myself. Like I think I had sex twice. No, I've had sex like a few more times, but like with two people over 4 years.
Wow, that's pretty good going.
So it's been something hard to control, so like this, but it's been like nice. But now I think it's like I don't think it's something I could do. Is to like be a monk and just stay a monk and really dedicate myself to living like the renounced life. So what I want to do now is I want to move into this. We have different ashrams, so we're different places that you could be, where you could stay spiritual, but you don't have to be like a monk just to be like spiritual. You could also be a grihasta, which is where we're. So there's brahmachari, which is the monk life technically, or the student monk, and then there's the grihasta, which is where you're a married couple, but you both practice spirituality, and then you live together. You can have a family, all the normal things that um, married couples can do, and then you go into like the renounced life, which is where you become like a monk and you completely renounce from material life, 100%. It can be man or woman. It doesn't have to be just a man or anything.
Monk and monkette.
Yeah, it could be monk and monkey or monkey and monkey or whatever you want. So then yeah, so I think now personally I want to be going into like the whole like maybe like into the like a relationship or like find a wife technically.
Do you think it would be important for your wife to be Hare Krishna?
Oh man, I'd like it to
It would
be.
make life a lot easier,
It
wouldn't
would
it?
make life a lot easier. Yeah, yeah. Like right now, I'm liking this girl, and she's like not at all. Like I mean, she's spiritual, but she's not like at all Hare Krishna. Like she's not like she doesn't believe in Krishna. She still eats meat. Um, she drinks a lot. So it's like, yeah, like it's a bit opposite, opposite attract, like maybe so. But then yeah, so I don't know, like it'll be nice. So that's why I'm just trying to like focus on like kind of like trying to stay celibate until maybe the right person appears, and then maybe try to like um
Slowly introduce it.
slowly introduce it or something like this. Yeah, exactly. And also it would feel nice maybe in a safe environment also. I feel like I'm quite sensitive now. Like I've sensitized myself to like certain things, and I feel like sometimes like if I had sex with a girl and she could easily hurt me like by saying she could make comments on my penis, or she might say something like, oh, that was that it, you know what I mean, or or is that how long you lasted, especially after a year of nothing. She might say something like that and that might hurt my feelings, or like, or she might not be totally loving as I would like it to be. Sometimes when you have one night stands, or you could get some like bad experiences. So I don't want to go through that. I really want to try to be in a safe place, somebody who loves me and that I love them, and then maybe
Yeah,
go through.
I get. I mean, well, that's some pretty impressive devotion,
I don't
I
know about
think.
that. Yeah, yeah. Thank
Like,
you. Cheers.
for example, like I think that there are certain things, certain addictions, and certain, yes, addictions, I suppose, that are way harder than the others. Like giving up drugs and drinking and stuff. For a lot of people, that seems hard, but at the end of the day, you can live your life without taking drugs and drinking. you can just not do it.
Yeah.
Food, for example, there's plenty of people addicted to food. Always had food issues, binge eating and everything like that. You have to eat. You have to.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like you're constantly, you have that constant battle.
Mm.
And it's like sex is a primal urge.
Exactly.
It's a primal biological thing
Yeah.
for us to get excited by the gender that we're attracted to, or the people that we're attracted to, and want to mate and bond and all these things. So then to try and separate from that is really, it must be really, really challenging. Really challenging.
Yeah, I mean, like, obviously, like, I mean, last night I went out to one of the best parties ever. Like, it was insanely cool. It was like the sound system, the sound system, the dub reggae sound system in Barcelona. They had one in Klutz, and it was just like so amazing. And it's obviously looking at the women there, they're just like so beautiful. And obviously, you're just like, oh man, it's so nice to go home. But one of the nice things about like the way I'm living right now, I kind of let things just happen slowly. So if I like somebody, there could be an exchange of numbers or contacts, and just let things kind of naturally trying to go into its place and things like this. But like for the moment right now, I'm kind of feel like I'm liking this girl, so I'm kind of like not really thinking too much about it, but it's still there, obviously, because I'm still single. So it's still there, and it's still like, but at the same time, I want to focus a little bit more, So I think once you're in love and you like somebody, and those kind of things kind of go out the way. But at the same time, like it's like anything. It's like if I've taken drugs, let's say marijuana for a very long time, and suddenly I just kind of like get with somebody, and we're in love. But then after maybe a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, I don't know how many years, you have probably desires to be with somebody else. When you don't smoke for a long time, you probably have it again. So yeah, right now I've kind of started smoking again because I was like, I need to loosen up. I need to loosen up. I need to regulate myself, but not so like fanatically, not so drastically. So I kind of loosened up the tap a little bit and just like started to smoke a little bit, which doesn't affect my consciousness too much. But I know that one night stands will affect it a lot more.
Yeah, I think that with all of these, like whether it is drugs, alcohol, not so much, but like, weed, mushrooms, LSD, even ecstasy, I think that if you can responsibly use them and you understand that even coffee, like if you understand it's for a short amount of time, I need this now for whatever, maybe I need to drink a few coffees for a week or 2 weeks because I got loads of shit and I need to get that done. But then you have a rest period after that, and you understand you use the medications for what they really are, and you understand it. I think it's okay. It's just it's obviously if you're I think you can only really do that if you're in a very good place anyway. And you're in a good place and you need a little tool, a little nudge to help you along.
Totally. No,
Because they are amazing. They are like drugs are amazing.
Yeah.
They are good. And like especially, I mean, the more
drugs.
it's like the more like I'm a big believer in like they can help you to reset your brain if something's not quite ticking right. I wouldn't do it again myself. I don't think things like ecstasy or ketamine, but they can have long-lasting positive effects for certain
especially
people.
like psychedelic effects.
Psychedelic effects.
What's it called? Ayahuasca. And all these kind of things. Like my friends, well, I have one friend. He's a Hare Krishna, but he's also like a big propagator of like psychedelics. So he's a Hare Krishna 100%. He believes in all the philosophy 100%, but he does psychedelics on the side, and he actually he's a therapist, drama therapist in psychedelics. So when you take the psychedelics, he kind of at the end he's there with you to kind of get back into that nice little process.
See, I think that's something I think is so interesting that we're going to see in the next like 5-10 years, because
definitely
it's like it's obviously it's happening kind of clandestine at the moment, and some places are legalizing it, but it works 100% it works. If you give a traumatized person ecstasy, mushrooms, LSD, ketamine in a controlled environment, and it will make them able to see their traumatic experiences from an outsider's perspective, and detach the feelings, or even if they're trapped feelings they don't understand, or trapped experience they don't understand, you can see that from an outsider point of view. And if you have a trained person that can guide you through that and allow you to kind of tap into what that is and tap out, and it's all a controlled thing, I just think it will allow people to move forward so much quicker and ultimately as well cheaper, because going through big long like therapy sessions for years and years expensive. You know, you can go to these type of places. I mean, not everyone can like fly to the Amazon and do ayahuasca, but you know, to go into like a little mushroom retreat in someone's house or whatever, I don't know, I'm obviously not recommending anything for anyone, but it's just these things exist, and for certain people they certainly work.
I believe so.
In my experience, the people I know that have used psychedelics in the past or occasionally use them now, again, are some of the best people I know. Because like it really does. Like there's certain drugs, if you use them too much, will make you not a nice person. But psychedelics, I've not had that experience with anyone, and it doesn't. It seems to be, unless people go way too hard on it. But I don't even really know anyone that's done that, because you can't. And
probably not. And actually, the funny thing is that the Hare Krishna movement was actually, it was actually built on LSD takers. So it was the LSD takers in the 70s that were taking huge amounts of LSD. The hippies were just trying to find a different way of life, and then Srila Prabhupada, which is like the founder guru, who came to the West, and the hippies just got super attracted to him. They loved him, and they just like all became Hare Krishna with him, and that's how the movement exploded since the 70s, and it's been growing throughout the world since that moment, but it's technically based on psychedelics.
So it stemmed from the summer of love.
Exactly. But we don't like preach drug taking at all. Like, but I was thinking about writing a book myself, which should be how to preach and take drugs at the same time.
Florian's Bhagavad Gita,
right? It'll be a controversial book, like, but whatever, like.
But I've made the choice to myself now to not use drugs. You know, maybe I will. Maybe I would in the future. You know, like maybe if I'm 50, 60 or something, and I go to a music festival and I'd love to take a pill or something. But for now, my life is going really well, and that's happened since I stopped taking drugs. And now I'm searching for pure, real inner pleasure and harmony, finding happiness in small little random stupid things, and like enjoying an event without the need for anything or just that. And it's really, really hard, and it's a really long, slow process, but I'm getting there. I'm making progress. And so I did a little bit of microdosing mushrooms, but that's effectively like taking vitamins, because you don't feel it. So it's like the reason why I'm doing that is I believe that it will heal some of the damage I've done from taking too many pills, you know, destroying my serotonin. And I believe that it will heal that in the background. So I did like a month where I took a microdose every 3 days. And I'll probably do that every so often now. Maybe I'll do small mushroom doses every so often. Because I think that they are positive. But I no longer have the need or the desire. It's more like I'm taking multivitamins, you know, I'm taking certain things to help like regrow my joints and stuff like that. And to me, it's the same thing. Why would I not take something that can hopefully, it'll either do nothing or it will have a positive effect? And I don't know. So I'm trying that out now. But then other than that, as much as I would love to take some drugs, I just, that's my thing.
No, I've been like, I'm not even like, to be honest, like me personally, I'm not even a big drinker. You know, I don't even feel the need to drink. But suddenly, recently, I've been going through like these situations with people and trying to connect with people, and I've noticed that everybody drinks a lot. So I've taken a few shots here and a few shots there and a few like glasses of wine, and then I've realized, and one of the reasons why is actually to connect with people, and on that level. You know what I mean? Not on that level there, but like just to be friends with people eventually. Because when you're so different all the time, and it's sometimes hard to be like really connect and make friends with people. You know, if you're like, oh, don't drink, don't smoke, don't do anything, and sometimes you kind of alienate yourself a little bit. You know, maybe not like I'm not really a person with aliens, but you want to connect because people drink. Like when we come to the comedy shows, for example, everybody's drinking. There's not really a lot of people who don't drink or don't smoke. So in this world, especially the arts world, there's a lot of people drinking and stuff like this. So association is important. We do talk about association. Your
Bonding.
association, yeah.
Alcohol certainly does make bonding easier.
Yeah.
It certainly does. And if you could responsibly have one or two every so often, then again, that's something I think would be absolutely fine. Me personally, the moment I drink alcohol, all I can think about is having more. And I will not stop until I pass out, and then I'll wake up and I'll do it again.
That happens with cigarettes, dude.
Yeah,
I'm the same with cigarettes. Like I have one cigarette and I'm just like constantly, like literally just one after the other one.
It's the exact same. I've had experience. Like I used to be really addicted to shisha, like smoking a ton of nicotine, and I understand that pull from nicotine. But I would say for me, alcohol is stronger. The pull from alcohol is stronger, and the feeling inside of like I need more now is stronger for me than nicotine. But it's like sometimes I get a bit, because I haven't drunk now for about 5 years, but sometimes I'm a bit, it makes me not sad, I suppose, but just a bit like, ugh, when it is harder to let your guard down and to bond with people when everyone's drinking and it's new people. But then, like me and my girlfriend were talking about this yesterday, I think that it's a good thing. It's a good thing, like when you're in these uncomfortable situations and you're learning to bond without alcohol, you're actually learning something. Because if you can take some alcohol and you can just chat shit with people and bond with them, and that's fine. But you're not really making connections because you're not talking about anything useful. You're not getting to know each other. You're just kind of cracking jokes or talking about stories in the past, which is what alcohol makes you do. But then it's like you're actually getting to the root of knowing someone, and maybe you meet people and you don't bond with them, and that's okay. You maybe you bounce a few conversations and you're like, I don't really just don't click with this person, and that's totally fine because it's like you can't click with everyone.
Exactly.
And then occasionally you'll find someone who you can sit down and chat with, and you love their company, and then that's a real friendship and a real bond. And I feel that I didn't start making what I would consider to be good bonds with people. My bonds were always very one-sided. Me chatting shit to people, expecting them to listen, and like very selfish way of that's a very selfish way of like interacting, and I was totally unconscious of it. When I look back, I'm like, how do people part with me? I must have been so fucking annoying, and like not in tune with the other person and what they want and their feelings and how I'm making them feel and all these things. And now I'm like, I feel like I got to know my friends so much more in such a tiny space of time from not drinking.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's like, I don't know, that the bond, that's how I justify it to myself, because
I mean,
sometimes I'm like, oh, I'd love to just be able to just be in fits of laughter and chat shit and stuff, but I'm just like, I'm gonna have to
I know what you mean.
I'm gonna have to find ways, like play is one of the best ways to get, to find laughter and to find happiness and to act like a child is one of the best ways to de-stress and to develop these bonding feelings. When you're a kid, you just roll about being an idiot, and it's just you have to try and do that when you're an adult as well. And that's why I'm trying to find this now through. I'm going to be starting the comedy improv, because that's just a way of like doing stupid shit.
So much
just
fun,
stupid stuff.
It
That's
liberates
like,
the mind so much.
Exactly. And I'm like, that is a healthy adult way to try and do some like bonding, laughing, weird stuff in a genuine way. So I'm like just searching for these new little things to do, basically.
Yeah, how do you call it? My friend's from France, and she says to me, there's the expression, no, I don't think they have it in English, the idle mind is a devil's workplace.
The devil makes work for idle hands. That's what we say, I think.
Yeah, so like if the mind is not occupied into something, then it will, do something that's not really good for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So technically, it's really good to be able to put yourself and to put that energy into different places, do new things, meet new people in those kind of places. That's going to be much better for you. Which is, it's a bit tricky. I'm finding it a bit harder. But anyway, I'll find a way to get back up.
Yeah. Okay, I think we'll start wrapping it up here. We've been talking for ages.
But
what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, this is the quest for wisdom. So
Cool. Quest for wisdom. Go. That was
quest for
really cool.
wisdom. So if you had words of wisdom for yourself when you were 15, and words of wisdom for other people who are, listening to this maybe in their 20s and their 30s, what would those words of wisdom be?
Words of wisdom. If
First
you
of all, to yourself,
first of myself when I was 15, yeah.
approximately 15, like.
First of myself would be um to myself would be uh personally it would be something along the lines of like find Krishna quicker. Find him quicker. Find him, get there quicker because it took me a long time. For me, it feels like a
Mm,
long time. I was a lot like, you just not really, technically it's just karma anyway. So you got to get there when he has to get there. You can't really control it. But I have like more of a desire, if you have the desire just to like, to try to be, as much as spiritual as you can. Try to be spiritual in some ways because it really helps you a lot in life.
so is that
So
is that your is that for your wisdom to yourself, or is that the wisdom both of them combined?
it has to be combined. It can't be just one way.
True.
I can't be like, yeah, just for me, and then for you guys, there's something else. That would just be like, yeah. So then, yeah, yeah, for everybody. Yeah,
Good advice.
yeah,
Good
cool,
advice.
man.
Find it, but
Yeah,
find it as quick as possible.
yeah,
Get there,
get there, yeah,
because
that's nice.
I think that spirituality has it's misunderstood for
Hmm.
one, and it can have a bad name,
Yeah,
and then it also has the Instagram side where it's like throwing out random quotes all the
yeah,
time, and it's like
exactly.
not practicing any of the because ultimately, I believe that you can reach states of bliss through many avenues.
Mm-hmm.
It could be through Hare Krishna, it could be through Christianity, it could be through Buddhism,
Hmm.
it could be through. Um, I think you can reach it without one of the like religious bases,
Hmm.
um, but I'm not sure about that.
Oh,
But it's
Buddhism,
like, but
Buddhism is not
it's
religious.
still following teachings, though, isn't it? That what I mean is
Oh,
like
okay, yeah,
is
yeah.
without external but I think that the fundamental concepts of these, the things
You
like
need practice.
prayer,
You need practice.
service, meditation,
Yeah,
gratitude,
yeah.
like all of these, the concepts, they're all the same around them, and it's like if you practice these things, if you just feed into
Mm.
these different things, you're gonna have a nicer life,
Yeah,
and people around you are gonna be
exactly.
happier,
Yeah, yeah, and you will be so
100%,
much happier with
and you'll be so much happier.
and you'll attract nicer people in your life. That's what's happening right now in my life. I feel like I've got so many really nice people that even now, just being able to talk to you and being here is like for me, it's a blessing. Like so yeah. So thank you, and yeah,
Yeah, well,
yeah, I appreciate it.
I'd love to go even deeper into the Hare Krishna,
Yeah,
but I think we'll save that for a future
yeah. Well,
episode. We'll,
come live with us for a while.
yeah, well,
We have
no,
an ashram there.
no, that's the thing. I need to come. I've been meaning to do it for ages, but I need to come check it out.
Yeah, come check it
I'll
out.
come check it out, and then we can do a future episode going deeper because I think
Yeah.
this is going to be popular. I think that people will like this episode because I don't think many people know Hare Krishnas.
Okay, well here we go. I'm the Hare Krishna. I'm the crazy motherfucker that dances in the streets.
He's not bald though. Yeah, that's the only
Not bald.
thing.
I had
One
to
day.
normalize my. No, I did it before.
I find
Yeah, yeah, yeah. When you first become a Hare Krishna, you become like really fanatic. You're like, I'm going the whole style. You put the clothes on, you put like shave your head, seeker in the back, and
it.
you don't think of anything else. But then after you start to realize that actually one is not easy to be 100% spiritual. Two, a lot of those things are just external things that are actually not part of the essence. And then you see nowadays, now what's really cool about the Hare Krishna now is that because it's kind of grown up, it's been like growing for like since the 70s, yeah? So then what happens is you've got people in the 70s or the 80s who've had children who were born in the movement and they've grown up with it nearly their whole lives. And now they're at the age of like 30, 40, like kind of our age. And you see they're fucking cool motherfuckers, man. They're cool. Like, they're just like cool, normal people, but cool. They're like super artistic or super intelligent in their departments. Exactly. But there's no fanaticism about them. They're not walking the streets chanting with their head shaved or anything like this. They talk. You just sometimes you don't even know they're Hare Krishna, bro. I'm a bit more like out there. Like I'm more of a preacher in a sense. I'm more of a teacher. Like, hey, blah blah. But some of them you have no idea. Like I have a friend of mine. He's like a music producer. He's like 100% Hare Krishna. Doesn't talk about it. Doesn't say anything. You have no idea he is. You know. And another one of my friends, same thing. You have no idea he's even Hare Krishna. He's the psychedelic one. No idea.
Yeah.
He's they're in different worlds. You know what I mean? They're kind of like in their worlds, but they're like strong, cool people in their worlds. So it's really nice, and it's like for me, like I got my friend is in the psychedelic world, he's in the world of psychedelics, teaching people how to, and he brings that spirituality that he's learning through the Hare Krishnas into that place, but not on like you have to believe in Krishna or maybe as I'm saying like like become a vegetarian or whatever. Or he's very like subtle, chilled out about it. And my other friend is in music, and he preaches through his music. He's on the music scene, and he's all like spread love and peace, and he talks about like deep meaning stuff. And even myself, when I go on stage and do stand-up comedy, I want to be doing kind of spreading that love and that peace around the world. So.
And on that note, how can people find you to see your comedy and see what you're about?
So my Instagram is flow comic. Actually, no, I'll tell you the one it is right now is called Florian Comic.
So that's Florian.
That's right, comic. Yeah, and then I'm going to be changing it either today or tomorrow to Flow Comic.
Okay, FLO
Comic. Yeah, that'll be my stage name. Flow.
Okay, cool. And is there anything else that people need to know?
If you guys want, I don't know where the people listening from.
I don't know.
Oh, yeah, but is it all around the world, or is it like mostly UK, Spain?
I have no idea.
No idea. Yeah,
I have no idea yet.
All right, well, go check out Hare Krishna Temple. In Saturdays, I do the meditation class, so come check that out if you're in Barcelona on Saturdays. That's pretty cool. We have like some nice yoga with some foods. It's pretty chilled out, and then yeah, so that's it. Really.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. You've been the third guest so far, and the exciting news is you will be receiving a Quest for Wisdom T-shirt.
Oh yeah,
I know,
like that. Yeah.
Well, it's actually different to this. It's way cooler. It's black with the logo like that.
Oh, okay, cool.
And then the writing on the back.
Nice, bro.
But the guy they messed up the back. They forgot to put the word "for" on it. So then now they're redoing it. So it should be ready tomorrow.
Okay,
so
cool.
then I'll I'll
email it to me.
I can't email you a T-shirt. I'll fax it to you.
Okay.
Thanks so much. This has been awesome.
Thank you, Connor, man. It's been amazing. Cheers. Bye, people who are listening.
Goodbye. Thank you for listening to the Quest for Wisdom podcast with your host, Connor Monaghan. If you enjoyed the episode and would like to support the show, then please like it, subscribe, and leave a review on whichever platform you are using. This small act is a massive help and is hugely appreciated. You can find more information about all of our guests on thequestforwisdom.com and follow us at The Quest for Wisdom on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter for exciting updates. We also have a Patreon account for anyone who would like to contribute towards the running of the show. Finally, I would like to thank the Comedy Clubhouse in Barcelona for allowing us to record here and for their ongoing support. If you are ever in Barcelona, make sure to check it out for daily shows of comedy and performance art in English. Farewell for now.